Welcome to Content with Character, the weekly podcast that'll give you the momentum you need to create content with more ease, clarity, and laughter. I'm your host, content copywriter Emily Aborn, and I'm all about unconventional marketing approaches. I believe in your big ideas, and I'm excited to help you share them in a way that's distinctly you. Hello, and welcome back to the Content with Character podcast, and welcome to the month of August, if you're following along with the show in real time. I'm super excited for this month, also simultaneously scared, which I will explain in a moment what I mean by that. To catch you up to speed, this summer on the podcast, we've been going a little deeper on some things that I've been really wanting to talk about and diving in on things that I just in general don't think get enough airtime in the entrepreneurial space. The episodes for me have been like these kind of like mini acts of self-expression, and they've brought up a lot of great conversations between myself and others, and hopefully between others and others that I don't even know are happening. So this month, August, I know it can be sheer and utter chaos for a lot of folks, okay? Because we're trying to wrap up summer in the best kind of way. And I know that at this time, I start to feel really overwhelmed with trying to balance all the things. Like there's this pressure to get everything done that you really wanted to do in the summer season. And life is also moving 10,000 light years faster because you have also prepping for back to school, or prepping maybe to get back to your business a little more seriously, or just prepping to get back into the swing of things, I guess, and into routines. But we still don't want to give up that enjoyment of the last bit of summer. Fill up on family time, get in those summer bucket list items, go to all the cookouts, right? So it can get a little chaotic. And as I record this right now, I have still yet to get my toes in the sand and on the beach, and that's on my summer bucket list, so that needs to happen. Don't even get me started with like all the little back end things in my business I've been working on this summer, the couple of website things I wanted to tackle for myself, finding a new newsletter email provider, and trying not to like just make the decision haphazardly, lots more social time, house projects. You can only do it when the weather is nice. You know, it's a lot. Okay, I'm not going to keep going on. You have your own little laundry list. It is a lot. And so because we're probably all kind of experiencing some combination of these dueling priorities, we're going to spend this month, August, which can be scary. It can be scary. But we're going to spend this month really on the podcast, just setting us up for a good fall. So we're going to go quick. We're going to get to the good stuff fast. And my goal is really to just give you like really high value as efficiently as possible. Now, if you've been here a while, if you have been a loyal listener, you know I do talk quickly, I do talk fast, but you also know that I tend not to be at a loss for words, which is something I'm working on. First of all, I want to shorten my intros. You heard it here first. But second of all, I just want to kind of like tighten things up overall. And yes, you can hold me accountable to that. So obviously today's intro is a little bit of an exception because I'm trying to share all of that and share this month's focus. But that's the MO we need to adopt going forward, folks. Okay. And this episode is going to be no exception to the like high value as quick as possible. However, I still do, of course, want to introduce myself at the top of my episodes, because if you are new here or if you got lost along the way, I just like to be sure that we are on the same page with things. So I'm Emily Aborn. I'm a fast-talking, faithful, highly organized content copywriter. And as you've probably heard or concluded, I'm also the host of this podcast. If you are new here, welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. I love finding out how you heard about the show. So definitely let's connect in another way. You can find all the links to connect with me in the show notes, or visit emilyaborn.com, and we'll find each other. We'll find each other out there on the internet. Okay. And lastly, on finding each other, this actually does relate to today's topic a little bit. So it's kind of a segue, a lead in, right, to the topic du jour. Some of you have been amazing and texted, not that you're not amazing if you haven't been doing this, but some of you have been amazing and texting and leaving voicemails, which is so awesome. And I want to thank you very, very much. I love getting your voicemails and having you text the show. If you want to text or leave a voicemail, if you didn't even know that was a thing yet, the links are always in the show notes. However, keep in mind, if you text the show, remember that I cannot see any identifying information. I can't see your name. I can't see your full phone number. I can only see the last 4 digits of your phone number. And it just shows me a general city. So it will be like a large city. They'll usually choose like the capital of a state, depending on the state. So I can't see specific. Which means if you have a question for me or you want me to contact you, you do have to include some information like your email or your name. I had somebody recently text the show looking for me to write her bio. She wanted a bio builder, which I had referenced in one of my episodes. And she gave me her first name. I could see the state of her cell phone number, but I had no way of actually contacting her. Now, fortunately, I'm a super duper internet sleuth. I plugged it in and I ended up finding her and calling her up. Now, I didn't even know if it was the right person. The area I was searching was huge. It was Chicago, Illinois, but it ended up being the right person. So just keep that in mind. I mean, that's obviously a very rare occurrence, but you do have to leave your name if you want me to know who you are. And I love your texts and calls, name or no name. So there's no pressure to leave your name. I'm just saying if you need me to follow up. So this texter, we'll call her Pamela, she was texting to ask about the bio building service that I offer. She wanted my help writing her bio. Now, this is a topic I get asked about a lot, and it's like one of my most popular I'll just put light in air quotes, services that I offer. Every time I do a post about bios or reminding people about the importance of a bio, I get a plethora of comments like, oh my gosh, my bio is so bad. I need your help. Oh my gosh, I need to work on mine. Mine is so outdated and irrelevant. What do I do? In fact, I recently pitched myself to be a guest for a really uniquely formatted podcast. And one of the things, so you kind of, the way the podcast works is you kind of record a video and an audio, but you aren't actually being interviewed by anybody. So they include that in a event that they do. So I pitched myself to be on this show. And one of the things that they had listed as one of their most requested topics, like we are looking for somebody to speak on. I mean, you didn't have to pitch this topic, but I just so happened to. When they were looking for people who would speak on writing bios. Like, how do you write a good guest bio when you're pitching to podcasts? It is 3 little letters, B-I-O, B-I-O. There are 3 little letters, and they feel, for some reason, huge, okay? This is a big topic to tackle. Why? Because your bio is a big thing, right? It precedes you when you're speaking at an event. It is those lines read by the host at the beginning of your podcast interview. It kind of shows your credentials, your expertise. You might put a blurb on your website and you're like, okay, this has to somehow say it all, but not say too much. It's also on your LinkedIn, and it ends up on your LinkedIn, usually taking up a lot of real estate. So I got to thinking about it, like, what is the big deal about a bio? Why are we all so concerned about our bios, and why do people struggle with writing them? Now, I'm sure there's like some psychological reason, but we're going to talk from a strictly content and marketing perspective, why they stress us out so much, and like, do they actually matter as much as we think that they do? So that's where we're going to go today. I do see a lot of people getting out of sorts around their bios. And I think that depending on who you are, like there are probably many more reasons than this, but 4 that I see commonly are that we think that everyone is listening and reading to this bio. We think that they're also listening to every word of it. And so we want it to be exactly right. And sidebar, we're going to be talking about perfectionism a little bit more next week on the podcast. But we think that everybody is focused on these few little words, okay, that precede our message. The second thing I see a lot is people want to say it all. We want to say everything. We want to include every aspect of our story, every bit of our expertise, our training, our experience. Like we would just want to jam that thing packed full. Who we work with, how we work with them, all of our services, just jamming it full. Number 3, a lot of people, and myself included, depending on the situation, we don't feel comfortable talking about ourselves. Sometimes we think that it feels braggadocious. Sometimes it feels like we just don't want to have the spotlight on us in any form or any fashion. And sometimes it's a little bit deeper. We don't actually believe in ourselves, or like, I can't stand behind this bio despite there being ample evidence proving that, maybe it's time you start believing in that bio, because it actually is you. Maybe it's time we believe in ourselves. And then the fourth one I just see really, really often is that people don't want to get too personal or share about themselves. And the list, like personal stuff, the list goes on and on and on. And often, because we get all up in our heads for any number of reasons, we don't know where to start, so we just don't do it at all. Then the one that we have on LinkedIn goes stale. The one that they're reading before we start that podcast interview makes us cringe. And we're like, oh, wait, that's not true anymore, right? We have to correct it down the road. We're constantly then editing and reworking our bio as fast as we possibly can whenever we have to send it out to somebody. And I think we need to start here. Does a bio even matter? Did you think I was going to come here today and say, never mind, we don't need a bio? No, it is very important. And it's very important for it to be a relevant reflection of where you are and who you are. And I also wish people would not stress about their bios as much or put all this undue pressure on it. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about why. But here's the thing. It is important to have a bio that clearly and succinctly sums you up. Also, what you do. We wanted to kind of create this intrigue and curiosity to bring in the people you love working with. And it also, the power of it is that it is your opportunity. I think of it like your 15, 30 seconds to set yourself apart from others who do what you do, show your expertise and credibility. But here's the most important part of your bio. Here is the most important part of the bio: to create connection. Just like the rest of your content and marketing, your bio, your biography is a bridge. It is a story. It connects the person on the other side to you. It is a magical thing. And it has a lot of power in it. It is important. It does matter. And you also don't need to sweat it, because your bio is a living, breathing thing. It evolves with you over time. You can actually create multiple versions of it. You can experiment with it. You can have fun with it. You can iterate as you feel so moved. You can tailor it for specific people, specific situations. You can also create one that you just feel really, really good about if you want. And it's forever and always, and you never have to change it. And then you can stop stressing about it, because I hate to break it to us all, but not everyone is reading it. Not everyone is hearing it. And they're most certainly not breaking down every single last word. Now, I say that last part not to dissuade you. I'm saying it to encourage you to experiment and have fun, a little bit more fun with it. Create different versions of it. Put it in different places. Some people are fast forwarding it or breezing by it in one place that they're hearing it or reading it, and they need it written out or spoken. And definitely people are not as critical about every last word in your bio as you are. So, to make this all a little easier and a little less heart palpitating, that's a new word, we're going to do this together. I'm going to give you a couple pointers for your bio building journey. Let's call it a journey. And it will help you get their attention just a little bit sooner. And also maybe keep them reading or listening just a little bit longer. Now, if this episode is too succinct for you, I did 3 other episodes on this very topic in a totally different way back in August of last year. I didn't even intend for it to be the same time of the year, but I'll include all 3 of those shows in the show notes. And it's just another case in point that there are, just like your bio, there are endless ways to say the same exact thing, bring home the same points in different ways. And I didn't even intend to be so meta, but here we are. Okay. Now, I know another thing, you might be tempted as you're listening to have a pen in your hand for this episode. You might be like, pause. No, I'm going to hold off listening until I can write all this down. But don't worry. I'm Emily Aborn, which means I have you covered. I give you detailed show notes this week, and it's going to have all of these action items, parts, and pieces written out for you. You'll even get examples. You'll even get screenshots. It's the whole works this week, okay? So just listen for now. I mean, like, unless you already have a pen in your hand and notebook ready, but just listen for now. And then you can go back and get those individual parts and pieces all written out in one place. So today we're going to kind of focus on we're going to start high level here. So I always recommend people have 3 different versions of their bio. And you're like, what? 3? Emily, I don't even have 1. Don't worry. We're going to do this together. Calm down. We're going to do 1 in very short bio. So like a very short form in first person. Now, when I say short, that's a very subjective word when it comes to words. So I'm talking like 100 to 150 words maximum. First person, for just in case you don't know, is when I would introduce myself at the top of an episode and say, hi, I'm Emily. I'm talking about myself. I'm describing myself. And it's very clearly from my perspective. So this is going to be for things like when you pitch yourself to podcasts, or like when you're pitching in a one-to-one format, you're not talking about yourself. You're actually like presenting somebody with, here's who I am. You might do it when you introduce yourself in a speaking engagement or in a podcast. You will find adaptations for this, or I don't think that was the right word. You will find places to use this verbally and also in writing. And like little things come up all the time where you have to introduce yourself in a Facebook group, right? So this is that opportunity. This is your very short first person version. As I said, you can see a sample of that one, all of these, if you follow that extended show notes link in the show notes. Just look for the finger pointing at extended show notes and you'll find it. Okay, next, you want the same length-ish, 100 to 150 words max, and you want it in third person. So this is as if I'm speaking about somebody else, not myself. So I'd say like, Emily is a content copywriter. And now this is what you send ahead of you for interviews, speaking engagements. It might be when you're like applying for a membership or something, or you're being listed as a director in a directory, or listed as a member of a team or a collaborator, like maybe when there's more than one collaborator. Stuff like that. So lastly, that's version number 2. Lastly, you want a long one. And I like first person for this, like the hi, I'm Emily, but go ahead and do one in third person if you want, depending on how you're using it. The point of all of these is that you're going to like be able to adapt to them. Okay. This long one is nice because you get a chance to really bring in more pieces of your story, who you help, how you help them, what makes you different, your relevant experience training. You just have more leg room, okay? I don't even want to give it a word count, but I'm going to say, I think, like, depending on where you're using it, I think like 300 words is a good maximum. And this one you can go ahead and use on social media. It could be like a standalone post sometimes. You'll use it on your About page. You'll use it on your LinkedIn, anywhere that feels applicable to have that. So those are the 3 versions we're going to build. First person, short, third person, short, and then first person, long. Now, to organize it all, your brain probably works in an entirely different way than mine, but I just have a simple Google Doc with all my 3 different versions. I also have a few extra things that sometimes I'll include depending on the situation. Fun facts or skills and experience. You'll see an example of mine because I'm going to take a screenshot. But basically then I just have to copy, paste, and send it, or include that bio, like just literally copy and paste wherever I need to put it. So today we're just going to get into 3 essentials that all come with 3 non-essentials, and just a couple of like tips and pointers to keep in mind as you write yours. This is like let's just get started and start experimenting with these. So essential number 1 is your name and professional title. Now, the non-essential that goes along with this is that your name and professional title do not need to be the first thing that you say. For example, you could start with, "Hi, I'm Emily Aborn. I'm a content copywriter and podcast host of the Content with Character podcast." There's absolutely nothing wrong with that at all. Most people do it. Or you could also have some fun with it and start a little bit different. You might do a question. You might do an opportunity that is connected with them. So for example, let's just say I was doing one specifically, let's say I'm on a podcast specifically talking about helping people with their bio. I mean, this probably in some instances could relate to content writing and copywriting in general, but here's what I might say. This is just like a rough draft, okay? It's not easy to write about yourself in a succinct way that expresses who you are, how you help, and all you've done to get to where you are, is it? Even as a copywriter who makes a living out of it, I sometimes find myself staring down the blinking cursor of doom when trying to sum up the entirety of what makes me me in a single paragraph. And that is exactly how I help small businesses. As a content copywriter, I help small businesses take this task off their plate entirely by writing them a bio that sets them apart from the noise of their industry. So that's it. You can start with telling them who you are and what you do, or you can kind of put the professional title in elsewhere. If you do the latter, just make sure that you are definitely getting it in. And you are maybe summing it up one more time so that they're kind of hearing it twice. The reason I like this, I don't always do this, but the reason I do like it is because it kind of stops people a little bit, makes them lean in. And a lot of people do what we all do. A lot of people share our professions and are in the same industry, but no one does it exactly like you do. And so I like this as an opportunity to really set you apart, show the individuals that you work with, and kind of express a little bit of your personality. So it just allows you to get to the heartbeat of what you do and who you are and how you help pretty quickly. It could be before you introduce your professional title. It doesn't need to be. So my top tip here when it comes to sharing your professional title is this. Please spare us the chat GPT-ified language. I recently heard on Andrea Jones' Mindful Marketing podcast. I love her podcast. I heard her say the funniest thing with a guest they were referencing chat GPT and AI content. And they were saying that AI really loves words like unlock, up-level, embody, step into. They say suffice it to say, AI likes to say a lot without saying much at all. So I want us to be cognizant of that in our own name and professional title. Be cautious of overused words, vague words, or jargon that's hiding the message of what you really want to say. And I know that sometimes it's unavoidable. Sometimes you have a title and people don't actually know what it is. But try not to bog your bio down with this jargon that only you can understand, or words that have entirely lost their meaning because they're just so entirely overused. I call it word salads. I actually heard one the other day and I was like, I have no idea, but it sounds nice. It's a word salad. So, summing up essential number 1, name and professional title, clearly state who you are. But remember, you don't need to necessarily put that in the beginning of the bio. You can put it anywhere. You can stick that information anywhere. Essential number 2, the skills and expertise that set you apart, specificity in who you work with, why somebody would choose you, listen to you, work with you over somebody else. How do they know they're a good fit in a millisecond? I know you're like, that's a lot. But we can do this all in a succinct way. And the non-essential here is going to help us do that. The non-essential is that we do not need to share every single person we would work with. We don't need to share every single thing that we would offer. We don't need to share every single thing that makes us unique, our entire backstory, and what makes us different in our approach. So I'm going to include an exact example of this that I think is rather succinct in those extended show notes for you, but you just want to kind of focus on speaking you want to focus on who you're speaking to specifically. So maybe it's local small businesses, maybe it's micro businesses, maybe it's multi-passionates, maybe it's neurodivergent adults, maybe it's curious people, maybe it's podcasters who want to make a difference using their voice. Be as specific as you can versus just saying like entrepreneurs, individuals, small business, women. Now, if you do have a niche, this is going to be where you want to add that. And here's another thing I want to say about the whole fluidity thing around our bios. If you have different niches, I would change it depending on where you're actually sharing this bio. So like I will tailor my who depending on if I'm speaking to a interior design audience or coaches or consultants, or like I like to know who the person is on the other side. And then I'll kind of say, okay, do I have a niche within that pattern, within that kind of person? This is why, going back to the beginning, I said it's a living and breathing thing. It's adaptable and it's meant to be. So here's another piece of this. Your credentials. Now, some of you have really big, notable accomplishments, and I want you to confidently infuse those if possible. If there is something in your professional background or personal background that influences your approach or how you help your clients, if it's beneficial to them, share it. But remember, this is not going to be your place. You're not going to have time to share it all. You also don't want to lose the other person in the me award show. Right? So I recommend on your bio sheet, you do start putting these skills, these expertise, your training, like whatever you need, your portfolio samples, put it on that bio sheet and you can use it and share it as it applies. But like I said, in my document, I have 3 versions. I have character and word counts above each version. I also have like where I might use them. So if I'm going to use one for podcast guesting, workshops, social media posts, etc. That way I can add in as I go. I can easily copy and paste and update them all if I change something. But here's the most important part, no matter like how you're sharing this, is you want to keep it focused on them and how it benefits them. So why does this matter to them? So if you just think about that when you're sharing your skills and your expertise and put it through the lens of how does this benefit them. And then lastly, when you're sharing your skills and expertise and all that fun jazz, just make sure you're being honest when sharing facts and information. I have no joke. I heard recently about somebody who went so far as to steal somebody else's bio, like word for word, but with their name, which I find absolutely appalling, for lack of a better word. You need to be truthful and honest, and this is your bio, so let's not be a copycat. Okay, last thing in sharing all the who's, the why's, the what's, and the how's, consider the context. So if it's being read aloud, and you have like 60 letters behind your name, think about how the person reading it should be saying it. So sometimes people are reading something, they might be reading your bio for the first time, like on air or from the stage. And I've heard people say things like Tina Meyer, MPH, which doesn't mean anything to the person listening. Tina Meyer may have wanted them to say, Tina Meyer has a master's of public health. So just remember, if you're using letters after your name, it might, in some cases, need some explaining. Not always, of course. So essential number 2, share the who, the what, the why, the skills and expertise. You don't need to include it all. Be succinct and be clear. And the third essential, last one, I think, is a personal touch. Now, it's probably not an essential for all of you, but it's definitely, in my opinion, an essential for most of us. Non-essential here is getting a little too silly or a little too witty. Like, we also don't need to tell them all of our hobbies, but I think some personal touch is really important, and some personal touch is actually really, really nice. You can make this really conversational. You can make it dynamic. You can make it engaging. even when somebody else is reading it aloud for you, they might even see something in it that they can relate to, and they might comment on that, which I think just better helps you build rapport in the conversation. So I recently had a client who kind of like pushed back on including anything personal on her about page. She said, well, I just want to appeal to high-end working professionals and they don't care who I am or like what I do for fun. So I told her, yes, and the decision is yours. And here are some reasons I might actually consider including more of you in your bio. I think that it really humanizes you and makes you relatable. It brings in that like approachability and warmth. And also, you would be surprised at how many people hear that one little thing in your bio that they do too, right? So they now see themselves in that, or, oh my gosh, I've been watching that too, or I love that too. So their ears perk up a little bit because you have some weird specific thing in common and you're fast friends after that. Personalizing it can also show your why or like other pieces of your life that really are pivotal in fueling the passion behind the work that you do. So for my own personal touches, mine are not like that extravagant, trust me, but I might share like where I live. Like I live in New Hampshire, and if you know, you know. You have major respect for us because of the winters that we live through and the power losses we suffer. I might share that I love hiking or reading or writing even when I'm not working. I like nerdy brain games and Jeopardy, which my nephew makes fun of me for and calls me a boomer. So the goal is just to like include those fun facts that make your bio a reflection of you and like your personality. So summing up the 3 essentials: easy peasy, your name and professional title, your skills and expertise that set you apart, what you offer and to whom, and a personal touch. Give these a whirl. Let me know how it goes for you. Remember, this is all an experiment, so we get to like try sending different bios in different places and hearing them said in different ways and giving them a whirl. And I cannot wait to see and hear your bios in action. If you want additional resources, you do want to see those examples I was talking about, just make sure to check out the extended show notes. I'll also include a link if you decide that you're like, I would just like you to do this for me. We will get you a bio turned around stat. So just think of this as we're wrapping up. Whether short or long or spoken or written or third person or first person, I want us to focus on our bio being engaging and dynamic, which means we have to practice using it. We have to practice reading it so that we can hear it spoken out loud, check the flow, but always know you can edit it. It's a living, breathing work. You can get feedback from somebody else and take it back to the drawing board. I wouldn't ask for feedback from tons of other people, but you can ask for feedback and like keep on workshopping it, right? But the goal is really to infuse your personality into this. We want it to set you apart. We want it to be your bio, not the one that ChatGPT could have written. We want it to be really unique to you. And in doing so, we're going to create a bridge of connection to the person on the other side. So that's the real goal. That is why a bio is so important, because it is an opportunity to create connection. All right. On that, I think this is a good place to end. And next week, we're going to get into perfectionism, which maybe shows up for you when you're working on your bio. But we're going to talk about perfectionism and perfectionist tendencies, and just like how to turn that down, maybe just like 1%. Okay? So I will see you then, and I hope you have a great rest of your week. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Content with Character. If you loved the episode, please make sure to subscribe to the podcast, rate, review, and share it with someone else you know it could help. For more content and visibility tips, visit my blog at emilyaborn.com, and be sure to connect with me on Instagram at emilyaborn. I'd love to hear how this inspired you to take action.